Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to EV Review Ireland. And we are at day 14 of the 30-day challenge. And I'm joined by a very good friend of mine, Martyn Lee from EV News Daily. Martyn, how are you?
I'm really good today. Thank you for having me on. Congratulations on making it halfway.
Well, nearly. One more day. We'll see how it goes. Thank you so much. Martyn has been a good contact of mine, and I'm lucky enough for the EV Review Ireland YouTube channel and myself to be a patron partner, executive producer. Martyn will clarify for me in a second. But I'm really enjoying the partnership. I'm really enjoying working with you. I thought it'd be a good person to have on as a guest, as an interviewer, and just for people to understand. People who watch my channel may not be aware of yours. I highly doubt it, but just to get them an understanding about EV News Daily and where it all came from and who is Martyn Lee.
Well, first of all, you're a premium partner of the podcast, right? So you are the
premium partner.
You are the absolute top level, cream of the cream, top level supporter. So thank you for that, first of all. And yeah, like the 30-second version of me is 20 years in broadcast radio, from local to national, as a presenter and as a manager. And then a few years ago, finding Robert Llewellyn's Fully Charged channel. Also, at the same time, I owned a VW Golf that was caught up in Dieselgate. I didn't really know what Dieselgate meant, and I saw Robert do one of his rants on how angry he was about car companies misleading the public. And I have to be careful what I say because, in some countries, they did do something very wrong and have paid fines. In other countries, because of the local laws, they still don't admit the same liability. So we're shown everywhere. So I'll be careful what I say. But I think it's fair to say they were very, very naughty. And I owned the Golf, so I got the call from my local VW dealer. They took it in, they did the fix. And then I got a call from the service centre manager saying, all right, mate. So while your car's in, let me tell you about our annual service package and we can do this. And I was like, no. You should be calling me to say, your car is ready. And also, if you're going to say anything, like, we're sorry we lied to you and we're sorry we had to do this, not upsell me. And so it was at that moment that I'm like, hang on a minute, there's a massive corporation here that's done something, and I still didn't quite understand Dieselgate at the time, something dubious, and you're using it as a chance to get my car back into your dealership and upsell me to your, whatever it was, £89 a year, like, we'll look at your tires once a year, mate. No, I'm done with this. So, it seemed so crazy that then I took a real interest in electric cars, plug-ins, and fully charged channel and all that kind of stuff. And it went from there. And then I was boring my wife about it all the time, and she and nobody at work would listen to me when I used to have a real job, a proper job. And so I started a Twitter account, which nobody followed, of course, and I was shouting into the silence. But then one person followed, and two, and then five, and then 10. And then after a little while of having that Twitter account talking about electric cars, my wife was like, oh, well, you stopped talking about them. I was like, oh, I've got to get this out of my system. So 3 years ago, started a podcast. So I come out here to my little studio to the bottom of the garden and talk to myself about electric cars, convinced that somebody is listening. Now, the stats and the downloads tell me people listen, but it is also, as you know, as a fellow kind of content creator, when you're actually making it, it's a little bit weird because you think, I wonder who's going to be kind of consuming this. Does anybody really care? But it turns out they do. So yeah, that's my story. The podcast was a hobby, started to make a little bit of money, made a bit more money, started to pay for itself, and then it became a business, and now it completely washes its face, and then there's always a little bit left over at the end of the month. So whether that is I want to do more on YouTube, so I signed up for a YouTube service that's like £29 a month that'll help me work out stats and things. So all the money goes into things like that, and so when there's money left over at the end of the month, it goes into building the show bigger and bigger. So yeah, it doesn't make me anything, but also same as what you're doing, I'm learning how to kind of content create. And also just a really quick story, it was I go back to my old university, Bournemouth University, where I still live. I love the town so much. I bought a house here when I came to uni. That I go back once a year and talk to students on the media courses or radio and what have you over the years. And I remember a few years ago talking to them and giving them the big I am, being like, you guys are so lucky, you can start a YouTube channel or a Twitter or an Instagram or a Flickr account, whatever, and you've got a worldwide audience. 20 years ago when I was starting, you had to do the overnight show on local radio and hope that your face fit, and that there was a series of normally, middle-aged white guys that were gatekeepers, and they would let you into the media industry. You're so lucky. And I kind of came away from that all smug. And then I suddenly thought, yeah, but I haven't done it myself. At the time I was running a national radio station, and it's a big audience, and you could do something and say, hey, call in now, and then the phone lines would light up. And so that was another reason why I started the Instagram channel, the Twitter for EV News Daily, because I wanted, as much as I thought I was this kind of like I knew, you know, I was telling students how it should be done. Actually, nothing is better at really making you humble than starting an account and it says, you know, 0 followers. Well, one, my mum followed, so my wife didn't, because she's like, oh, electric car stuff. So so there's nothing more humbling than starting with that 0 and thinking, oh heck, like you need to put into practice what you've been telling these kids what to do. So that was another reason as well.
Very good. On your point of starting off at 0, and I've started reading a lot more recently, Martyn, about sometimes subscriber numbers aren't all they're cracked up to be if people aren't actually watching or listening to the content. And I think the great thing about your podcast is I'm sure you've got stats that shows you how many people downloaded or played it, whereas having a YouTube channel, which you also have, and having thousands of subscribers, but if they're not engaging with it, sometimes it can be a bit of a false sense of, oh, I'm doing something really good here. So it's great. I think the podcasts, I'm sure you can see the numbers, and as you're talked about recently, they're growing in different geographical locations around the world as well, which must give a great sense of satisfaction as to what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you look at around the world, the different people are becoming interested in electric cars. So it began very successful in the UK because I guess that's where I was, and I was talking to people, you know, in communities and on Facebook groups. And then I saw, so yeah, about 60% of my audience are now in the US. So it's interesting that you know, 3/5 of our audience are listening to this crazy British guy occasionally saying mean things about Tesla, and also very kind things when they get it right. And I'm amazed that they listen. And so, yeah, it's a big audience in America now.
That's really, really good. But I'm sure you can see other countries starting to creep up in the stats as well as the interest in EVs come around as well. Because I found on my channel, it's UK number 1, even though I'm called EV Review Ireland, then Ireland, then it is Norway, Germany, and the United States. So it's interesting to see the different geographical mix within there. As much as I'm an Irish branded site, the cars that I review and the vehicles that I review are global vehicles. The Nissan Ariya is going to be the same in Ireland as it is going to be in the United States, pretty much. So they're just looking for that different aspect.
Yeah, and how much do you think, so as people watch your channel around the world, how much time do you, when someone's watching your videos and you do car reviews and they're very comprehensive and you present it in a very kind of matter, it's what I think of it as a proper car review, and at the other end of the scale is Top Gear and Grand Tour, which is an entertainment show. Cars happen to be, I saw an advert for Jeremy Clarkson's new Amazon show, and he's filmed it on his farm that he bought. And again, he's a great entertainer. The backdrop is sheep, and he's a great entertainer. The backdrop is cars. You properly review cars, like what I would call a car reviewer. How much, when people watch your channel, do you think people get an idea of how much time goes in from the beginning of that process to when you hit publish? And even then it doesn't end because you reply to comments and what have you. But that whole process of lining up the car, getting your cameras, filming it, or writing it, filming it, editing it, do people appreciate how much is involved in just one of your videos?
It's a great question. I feel like I'm being interviewed, but thank you, Martyn. I'm very much like you and your local Bournemouth University. I did a recent master's in marketing class here in Dublin. 65 students online via one of the video conferencing platforms, and again went through the growth of the channel, but also what it takes to actually, like you're saying, get the vehicle to review, car, van, bus, whatever it may be, get the day on the shoot, come home and edit, then promote, then follow up with the comments. And as much as we think that generation have those tools to be worldwide broadcasters if they so wish, I don't think a lot of them realized, and as you know with your podcast and also the YouTube channel, when you have to do all the pre-work on site and then afterwards, the glamour of having a lovely Audi, Mercedes, whatever it is, Dacia Spring for the week is very quickly eaten into it, because you're gone for hours, you're working away for hours, and you have to have a very understanding partner in your life as well. But sometimes your friends and colleagues just see the fancy car and go, oh, it must be great getting a free car every week or every other week. So it's definitely, I don't think they appreciate it. And that's what I'm really liking about this 30-day challenge. I may have to delve in a bit more about me, about the channel, about what it takes. So thank you so much for coming on and just chatting to me very briefly about it. But coming back to EV News Daily, cliche question, but what's been your high and what's been your low?
the high has definitely been getting, we launched question of the week maybe a year into the podcast, and on a Sunday we read out answers from people. Actually, there was two highs. The first one is I put the show on Patreon because it was, by that time, it was getting more successful, and it was the streaming was a hobby that was costing me money. Now it's fine if you play golf and you have your membership and a new set of clubs, or whatever, that's your hobby, right? And so I wrote it off as a hobby, and as it increasingly cost me personally money to pay for the streaming and the hosting, and you get to 300, 400, 500 shows, whatever that, it all lives online on a server somewhere. So I put it on Patreon thinking that nobody would do it, and I would then close the Patreon down and say, well, I tried it and I learned a lot. And I think within maybe the first 48 hours, or maybe the first 72 hours, there was like 50 or 60 people that had signed on, mostly at the lower level of like £5 a month. And maybe it wasn't quite that many, it was like 40 or 50 people, but and then it's grown incrementally since then. But a couple of months as you came on board to support the podcast as well, and using that audience to promote what you're doing as you're in that growth phase as well. But that was a crazy few days of my phone just going ping, ping, ping. Oh my goodness, people appreciate what I do. I couldn't get over it. The other one was launching question of the week, where we just ask the audience about a topic and then I read them out. They don't come on, but I read them out. And again, I thought, well, no one's going to reply to this. I presume the podcast was a passive experience and people would just listen to it, learn about electric cars, maybe even buy one day. And again, each week I get way more emails than I have time to read out. I try and make the podcast 15 minutes and that fails miserably because it's normally half an hour on a Sunday with all of the responses from the audience. And that is amazing as well. And that is that dialogue, that two-way conversation. Because YouTube, what you do is different with YouTube. So YouTube commenting is much, much easier, much more native to whatever app you're using, the YouTube app, where you're online. Comments are easy, boom, left, and everyone can see that. Podcasts are very, very different. Podcasts are an open ecosystem, works in a different way. Discovery is much harder, of course, but then there's no one central place to leave a comment and have a discussion about a topic. And so people do that on there are various podcast websites that allow that, but there's no massive scale. The big one is Apple, and they don't allow that. So and Spotify increasingly. And so getting those emails have been fantastic. The lows have definitely been when I've missed a day or missed a couple of days, and I get super stressed out because life gets in the way. And whether I've been ill or had a cold or yeah, we became a family 18 months ago, and that was at the beginning of COVID, so that was crazy. So, life was, we'd been together 20 years. We became quite late parents in life, and so life was different. Then COVID happened, and I've not always been able to make a podcast every day, even though it's called EV News Daily, and that really stresses me out. Those are low points, sitting there at 11 or 12 at night, thinking I should go to bed, but I should also crack on and start looking for stories, because it's going to be a 2 or 3 hour process if I start, and he's going to be awake at 6, and so it's that definitely low points are just not having enough hours in the day.
I think hopefully anybody watching this interview, as well as being a listener to Martyn, when Martyn does miss a day, we get concerned because sometimes we may not know what the reason will be. And you'll either get a tweet, or I'll send you a WhatsApp, or then you'll come onto Patreon and you let the Patreons know what's happening. And all of the comments, Martyn, and this, and don't let this stress you out, are look after yourself. Like, to know that Tesla have launched a new battery, if you tell us in a week's time, we're going to be okay, or that Nissan are doing whatever it may be. So don't let that be, because what you're doing, and you're like over the 1,000+ mark, 1,100+ mark at the moment, a phenomenal achievement. And I think I'm great doing a 30-day challenge, where you used to do it. You do it every day, and I know
it's gone back to daily. Yeah,
you tried 5 days and you didn't feel right about it, and then you're like, so me thinking I'm great doing a 30-day challenge, and you've done 1,100 odd days.
I guess so. It's hard producing something all the time, and it's great when people enjoy it. But so I've not paid enough attention to my kind of YouTube. I need to do more of that. But this is where you're building your business and your channel. What's YouTube's latest thing about, because it used to be, they want 2-minute video years ago, right? Really short videos, and then I remember years later reading, now they want 50-minute long form content that engages people and gets lots of time spent watching. And then and creators were leaving the platform because they were burnt out and making a video a day and all that kind of stuff. So what is the current thing in terms of YouTube? Do you Do you have to release car reviews regularly, or the algorithm doesn't favor you? What have you learned about that?
For sure. I used to be every 2 weeks, and I didn't think there was enough content out there, i.e. vehicles for me to review. And then that sped up very quickly. So now I'm one a week. Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you'll get a review off me. And with the 30-day challenge, I just wanted to see how I do it and the type of content and varying it up, which has been great. But I'm sticking to once a week. I probably could go to twice a week, but I have a life as well. This is a passion project. Getting a car, reviewing it, and there are other motoring journalists here in the Irish market, and I can see them all also around the world globally. But they'd be nearly full-time motor YouTubers. Length of content, they're starting to push out shorts, which is their rival to TikTok, and that's starting to take off. They're now monetizing channels that aren't even monetized, so YouTube will take the ad revenue even if you aren't able to claim it back off them. So there's a lot of different things like that happening within the network. I am lucky that I've got a couple of channel partners with an insurance company that specializes in EVs, and also one of the main charging networks here in Ireland. So they've got exclusivity on the channel. So I'm not just putting everything into one basket with regards to YouTube revenue. I'm starting to mix around. And very much like you, after setting up a Patreon channel and a PayPal link where people can tip me via PayPal or support me via Patreon. I haven't had the 48, 72 hours that you've had, but that's starting off. I appreciate that I'm at the very early stages, but I've been amazed at the people that have reached out to me and sent me messages or sent me a tip via PayPal. Never met them before. One guy said, I don't even drive an EV, but your channel is helping me understand. And back to your point at the beginning, my style is, it's a matter of fact. It's like I'm a human manual for a car. If you're thinking about buying a car, if you go and look at one of my reviews, I go through every element of the car so you get an understanding of it. There's much more entertaining and opinionated YouTube reviewers out there. And you know what? There's an audience for that as well. But what I'm finding is once the content goes up for my stuff, it might be 8 months, 10 months old. People are still checking into it because it's still the secondhand car market, or it might be their new car. They're still looking at it as well. So great question. Thank you, Martyn.
I find that what you say is very trustworthy. I think there are two. Personally, I love two kind of accents where I'm enjoying content. I love Australians because they swear and they don't think they're swearing, and I love listening to Australian radio because it's like what they class as a swear word. We don't. But I love them because anything an Australian says, I find funny. Siri is Australian on my phone. Oh wait, I've woken her up now. But because it makes me smile whenever she chirps up. But also I find Irish voices. To me, at least, I find that I like watching Irish content because I find it very authentic and trustworthy as well. And there's something about the Irish media landscape. Radio is very successful there, certainly in Ireland. And I find that Ireland, albeit geographically very small and economically a bit smaller as well, actually is a very sophisticated media market. And I like watching Irish content, and again I find it very, very trustworthy, and there's something it's either the accent or the way that the content is delivered, but it's very, very honest and trustworthy, and you're not selling anything. So you're not selling a car, you're not selling a certain kind of brand of car cleaning. You're not breaking off halfway through to say, hey, buy this certain snow foam, as some of these reviewers are doing.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more people reaching out to me, looking to me for me to put this stuff in. But I definitely, the two partners I've had are ones that I value and I think offer value to my viewers, and that's what I want. And as you're saying, I'm not on commission. I don't even own a car, as much as I know that you're a Renault Zoe driver on your second one. The fact that I don't own a car and I can get around on public transport or via the cars I have to review, I'm very much brand agnostic, and I don't even have that loyalty to one or the other. Martyn, this is supposed to be a 10-minute interview, and it's getting up 20 minutes. So we could chat for an hour, and we're not going to do that. I thank you so much. I know that it is not your working day, and I really do appreciate the support. If people want to log in and find you, you've got your website, you've got the YouTube channel, All EV News Daily, if you do a search engine search on it. And also people can leave reviews for the podcast on Apple. Is that the only channel they can leave reviews on?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's anywhere else. Apple's still the biggest one, but yeah, you can go if you're an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac user, or even on iTunes on PC, which is still a horrible experience. Tim Apple, please fix it.
I'm sure he's watching. He's watching my YouTube channel.
Why is there still iTunes on a PC when it's this bad a software? But yeah, you can use that. And I'm a PC guy for. It's weird. I have a foot in both camps. But yeah, however you do it, then Apple's a great way. You can leave a review, a star rating, and a review for the podcast. And it's always really interesting to hear from people who are, supporting small creators, like us. So, right back at you. Please make sure you are leaving your comments about what you're doing, and I want to see people talking about your channel as well and how you're growing it. And there's so many big channels out there that do things really well, and they're talking about saving the planet with electric vehicles, and they're jetting around the world. So it's like, okay, well, that doesn't quite line up to me. So I like what you do. It's all super local. And again, I love the fact that you're not just doing cars, because clearly there's clicks in certain types of cars.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's got a battery in it, you're super interested in it. So that's what I love about your channel as well, is you've broadened it out, and there's kind of a natural curiosity to your channel. I think people are using YouTube to learn to. If I'm going to spend an hour on YouTube, I know it's going to be a different hour as if I spend half an hour on TikTok, because some things are entertainment and just sort of killing time, whereas I don't know about you, but I'm spending kind of more time on YouTube, and I like coming away feeling like I've learned something. And that's what I love about your videos as well, is like I think, okay, well, I've chosen discretionary time in my day, of which we all have so little. And I feel like I've improved myself by a little bit. So again, I'd like to see people commenting on your channels about what they enjoyed, what they'd like to see, and things like that.
Thank you, Martyn. I try and mix it up, and there's very few channels out there that have 2 electric buses on there and vans and all the rest of it, as you know. Last thing I want to talk about, Martyn, is some of the press cars I get have some music streaming platforms built into the actual media player. One brand we've already mentioned with a large screen in their dashboard, and I'm always going into Spotify whenever I get these press cars and going to EV News Daily and clicking it as a favorite. So every other journalist that's in the car after me. Now, Martyn, between me and you, and nobody really watches these, do you know when you have to create a profile in a car as well? Because sometimes they've got multiple drivers, but the press cars, nobody ever creates a profile. I go in and I create a profile for EV Review Ireland just to wind up the other journalists. But
brilliant.
Listen, we'll see if they ever notice.
Brilliant. Mind games. Yeah, you got to get them. You got to get them. Yeah.
Everybody, this has been Martyn Lee with EV News Daily. If you, wherever you get your podcasts or wherever you watch your EV news update, it's an amazing. I'm so happy to be a partner with Martyn's channel.
Premium partner.
Come on. Premium partner. And make sure you tune in or watch wherever you get your content from. Leave the review on Apple if you are an Apple user. Martyn, thank you so much for your time today. And as always, I've been Derek Riley. And if you think an EV is for you, leave it to me and I'll review. Thanks for watching.